Chris Cowlin, I want to say shout out to Chris. Thank you, Chris, for doing the God's work and putting these into tweet format for me, mate. So I can borrow them, steal them from your Twitter account and read through them. So, George, I want to talk to you about this one. The European Super League. Daniel Levy was asked if the European Super League came along again, would you consider it? And is there a buyback clause with Bayern for Harry Kane? His answer was, firstly, under the new rules with the Premier League, we can't consider leaving the Premier League without their consent and the FA's consent. All I would say to you is that we always act in the best interests of this club. And I stand by the decision that we made, that we were prepared to have a conversation regarding the European Super League. It was not leaving the Premier League. It was about forming a new European League that would have continued in the same time as the Premier League. But we felt that it was a disaster for a lot of reasons. But I stand by my decision that I was acting in the best interests of the club. And regarding the Harry Kane thing, he says there is a buyback clause. We'll come back to the Harry Kane thing in a second. Regarding the European Super League, mate, he's making out like it was just a conversation. It was just a conversation, right? And it was in best interest. It wasn't a conversation. We'd signed up to it. It wasn't for a lot of reasons. It was for one reason, fan revolt, that he walked away from it. But look, is it an inevitability, mate? Is it an inevitability anyway? He's basically saying that he wouldn't necessarily walk away again. He can't legally do it without the Premier League's consent, but he's still trying to act in the club's best interest. What's your take on the Super League concept?
Do you know what? I was actually for the Super League when it did happen. I didn't really mind it. I'm all for my team playing against the biggest clubs in world football, so I wasn't too against it. That's literally the way I looked at it. Yeah. I was excited, and just knowing that my team's a part of it, I was just running with. We're one of the biggest teams. I was just running all the banter against, especially the likes of West Ham fans and so on. Like it was the best time. So, but Levy's comments are just very defensive. It's what you expect from Levy. He's never going to walk away or look bad at a decision he's made. He's always going to support everything he's done. And just the way to play it down that much is very Levy-like. It's just extremely business and like lawyer answer. Just, I stand by my decision. It was for the best interest of the club. We'll just continue to repeat that. But
yeah, the only thing I'd say about this, right, is I wasn't there last night. I have watched it. And I feel like the answer he gave to that particular question feels a little bit defensive, like you're saying, right? Like he's not going to sit there and acknowledge any blame or guilt. And he's trying to kind of pull the wool over people's eyes by saying, it was a number of reasons why we didn't go. It was only a conversation. Those things are clearly untrue. It was one reason why we went in. It was one reason why we pulled out. And it wasn't a conversation. There was more to it than that. To me, like I feel like in other ways and in other answers that he's given last night, he's starting to at least come across like he's acknowledging responsibility, pressure, mistakes that have been made. But with this particular one, it doesn't seem like he's willing to just come out and say, look, I was trying to do what was best for the club, but ultimately you guys disagreed, as did, and so we had to rethink. And, if you guys don't want to do it, like there's another way that he could have answered it that could have come across a little bit more sincere, that still played well with the fans, that he listened to the fans. But instead it feels like he's kind of trying to dance around the truth around how it was. And I find that it's a little bit disingenuous myself. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Jules.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's just, to be fair, like I said, it's always going to be disingenuous from Levy, and I feel like he's always going to protect himself, and he's always going to, even when we get on to some of his other comments about some of the other things, you can just tell it's very defensive, and it's very, as I say, it's always in the best interest for the club. He thinks he's for the best interest of the club, but it's not really for the best interest of the fans. It's in Levy's best interest. That's what he's pretty much saying most of the time.
Yeah. The next one we've got, this is regarding getting the manager right. So Daniel Levy said, there was a lot of pressure on me to bring in somebody that was a big name. I just wanted somebody who understood our DNA, who play attacking football, that would give young players a chance, believe in the academy, would build a relationship with the fans, and understand the team resources that we have and don't have as a club. The resources that we do have and we don't have as a club, and be part of a team. Ange, I have to say, is a breath fresh air. I'm going to just, before I bring you on this one, Jules, I'm also just going to bring in the other kind of managerial related kind of conversation that he had. Spurs channel Daniel Levy on Mourinho and Conte, says Chris Callan. Maybe you'll be surprised by my answer, but I want to win as much as everybody else. But the frustration of not winning and the pressure from maybe some players and from a large element of the fan base that we need to win, we need to spend money, we need to have a big manager, we need to have a big name, and it affected me. I had gone through a period where we'd almost won. With Maurizio, we went through some very good times. We didn't quite get there, but we came very close, and we had a change in strategy. The strategy was, let's bring in a trophy manager. We did it twice, and look, you have to learn from your mistakes. They're great managers, but maybe not for this club. For what we want to play in a certain way, and if that means it has to take a little bit longer to win, maybe it's the right thing for us. That's why bringing Ange in was, from my point of view, the right decision. And then sorry, I did this in the wrong order. And then he's saying about the pressure to bring someone in, and he suddenly changed tact, and he wants to have someone that understands the DNA, understands the need for the youth, understands what we have and what we don't have. A lot of digs, a lot of slide digs, by the way, at Conte. Dug in there that Conte was saying one thing to him and another thing to other people. I mean, lots to chew through there, George. I'll let you go through it how you want. He's basically saying we've gone in a different direction, but half of the reason why I went in the first direction was because of you, the fans.
Yeah, the fans. Yeah. So, do you know what? I do respect some of his answer. He did. He literally went on and just admitted he did try to go with what the fans said, and which he probably wasn't wrong in doing. After Pochettino, there was a lot of pressure because that team failed. It was, we need to win. We need to get something out of the team, and we did try to go for that win. Now we was all for it. I don't think any fan when Mourinho come in was against it. We was all excited for it when it first happened, but it's just one of those things. Like Levy, as I said, is very defensive still. He's trying to blame it on the fans. He's trying to put it all to us and say, look, I tried to do what you guys wanted. It didn't work out. So now I'm doing what I wanted. And now it's working. He's basically trying to take the credit for it yet again and say, look, like I wanted to go for Ange. I wanted him to bring the identity back. And really, it's what we've wanted this whole time. We always know what we've wanted. Tottenham fans want to play this attacking football. We want a manager that can build a project, and we want something that can be a long-term future for the club. And it's always been a part of Tottenham's identity before Levy, and it will be there after Levy. And it's something that he took away from us for a while, and we need it back. But going back to what he's saying about Ange, and he's saying bringing everything back, I do think that he is right in saying that Ange is probably the perfect guy for the appointment. I'm looking forward to seeing the years that he's going to bring forward. But yeah, man, Levy's just he's a funny character. I love the way he loves to throw the blame everywhere else by himself.
Yeah, look, I mean, so I personally think he actually came across okay. I don't think there was that many questions that were like really, really strongly worded towards him, but there was only half an hour of fan questions. The rest of the whole show was obviously orchestrated to a degree. And I think that a lot of the questions that were orchestrated gently covered the topics that allowed him to navigate the answers in the way that he wanted, rather than leaving it open to people to come out with some direct, for people that feel differently and strongly about Daniel Levy. For me personally, though, like I do agree with him to a degree that there was the need after Pochettino, because we didn't quite get there, to then go and get the last piece of the puzzle in terms of manager that could get you over the line. And there was that kind of pressure. I've said it 100 times. I get pelters for it, but I think that getting to the Champions League final at the stage that we did, where we were at when we were at it, having just spent all the money on the stadium and the training ground, but didn't have the rest of the ecosystem in place, I personally think that we outperformed to our detriment. If we had gone out of the Champions League at the quarterfinal stage that year against Manchester City, which we were only a handball away from happening, I think the expectations would have been lower. I think that the curve would have been more reasonable. But because we got to the final and then we didn't quite make it, I think Pochettino's words after and even in the pre-match conference didn't help. He started to kind of believe his own, believe his own hype, or believe the hype about him. Everything kind of then tumbled back down because we weren't prepared for that next stage. And then Daniel Levy, foolishly, to his detriment, thought that the only thing we needed to do was bring in someone who could who was a here now, ready now manager. And I think there's so much more to a successful team than that, and we weren't ready in other ways. I do think that he is at least acknowledging on some level that there were mistakes made. Whether or not he's saying 100%. That I was led and pressured by fans and players to go in certain directions, I don't know. If you're a leader of a big organization, should you be celebrated for listening to your stakeholders, or should you be chastised for not having the gusto to do what you want to do, to do it your way? I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but in any event, he went that way and it didn't work. And now we're back to doing it the traditional method, which is, playing good football and utilizing, a strong youth system. And I'm all for that right now, but I feel like we've wasted the last 5 years. I don't know if that's your kind of summary.
No, I definitely agree. I feel like the last 5 years has just been a waste. Like, it's just been us just dilly-dallying and just going up and down. And pretty much now we're back to, like, say, a proper project, and it feels like we're back to the way Tottenham need to be. It just, we need the right investment. So far it's been all right, but I don't know if you're going to get on some of the more other quotes, but regarding the investment in the team, I just feel like we have been lacking on that front. And the way that they put on, especially regarding the ticket prices, and he threw it on to the fan, like, we need to maximize revenue in all ways so we can invest it in the team. We're still not seeing the investment in the team that we should have been seeing, because we've been in the stadium for 5 years and we're still investing at the same level of the likes of West Ham, Nottingham Forest, and teams that are on at the same level of us. We're one of the biggest clubs in world football, one of the richest clubs in world football, and it's just not adding up.
Yeah, so before I bring that up, because I do have the naming rights and the ticket pricing stuff, I did a video a couple of days ago that looked at the minutes of the FAB, the Fan Advisory Board meeting, and in that they actually showed the net spend over the last 8 years or 6 years since we've joined since we built the stadium. I think it's 860 million or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but circa 850 million in spend and about 220 million in player sales. So we're net about 100 million pound a year over the last 6 years in net spend, of which, of course, you have to factor in 2 years of COVID. And when you think that Tottenham's revenues over even in our most profitable year last year, I think it was, or one of them was 440 million. We've made revenues of about 400 million on average every year over the last 6. We spend already about 50% of our revenue on salaries. And then on top of that, 100 million quid a year in net spend on players, which is 25% of the revenue as well. So we're kind of spending about 70 to 75% of our entire revenue on the cost of staff or the acquisition of them, which, is in line with what you're allowed to do with FFP and not a lot more. And so I don't personally subscribe to the idea that there's other clubs like Chelsea are taking this longer term view where they'll just throw money at it, that they'll take the ownership money and spend money that the club doesn't generate. And then they have to find ways through moving money around on FFP to be able to make it look like it makes sense. But I personally don't subscribe to this idea that a football club should have to live off credit to the owner. I think you should be self-sustainable. And I think that's what Tottenham have argued that they are, but also at the same time spending that money. So I'm not someone who personally thinks that we're doing all that stuff the wrong way. I think that the inflation in the transfer market created by things like Saudi Arabia is an issue that means that you only get a Brennan Johnson now for 50 million quid, and 50 million quid is like 13% of Tottenham's entire revenue. So you can't really spend that much more every year if you're still going to work within your means, which personally I think is not something to
I feel like one of the biggest problems over that last 6 years, like I said, is the players' outgoings. We haven't been able to sell players over the past 6 years as to why we can't bring them in. Because if you look at other clubs, like, say, our counterparts like Chelsea, maybe not Arsenal, but Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City, look at their outgoings, they're probably looking at about 600, maybe 700 million in that same time frame of just outgoings into their team as to why they can spend so much. And our
Yeah,
ability to not get rid of players, which we're still suffering from now, is
correct.
one of the main reasons why we can't sell them. And 200 million pounds bringing in, and is that including the Harry Kane money?
Yeah, that includes the Harry Kane money. So I think it was 230 million
crazy.
over the last 6 years. Yeah, it's mad.
So it's pretty much 100. Let's take away from that 130 million from God knows how many players in 6 years is crazy. Like that's no top club should be bringing in that amount. That's, like you say, in today's market, that's 3 or 4 players. So really and truly, that is one side of our game that we need to up
100%.
in order to progress.
I completely agree with you, mate. If Tottenham Hotspur were better at player acquisition or being able to find ways to dilute your misspend better than what we have done, then I think we'd be in a far better position. But I think we're still dealing with legacy issues of Steve Hitchin. And also, I think that there's variables outside of our control, like bankrupt Europe. You know, there's only in every league in Europe, because of their way that their finances, their pyramid is structured, only 2 or 3 teams in any of those leagues get the money. Everybody else gets very little. And the players that we have, the teams that do have the money don't want. And so we're struggling with the inability to offload players because there's no secondary market at our level. But again, that comes back to our own inability to identify sort of good players. But on that note, he did say, where's my notes here? So on the ticket pricing, he said, we've agreed we will do a long-term strategy paper on ticketing generally. It's not just about pricing, it's about access, away ticketing, membership. There will be a review. He also said, with regards this, well, let's start with the stadium naming rights. He was asked about the naming rights, if it's a missed opportunity for revenue, and would that money have prevented the rise in matchday tickets? And he said, there's a couple of questions here. So on naming rights, it's quite a complicated process. Unfortunately for us, we got interrupted by COVID. To do a naming rights deal, it's got to be done with the company coming to visit the stadium and experience it. So that interrupted the process. Since then, we've taken the decision that as much as we would like the right sponsor, it's really important to build our name globally. And all the events that we've had in the stadium have just enlarged the profile of this club. So for us, we want to find the right sponsor in the right sector at the right price. And in the meantime, unless we get that, we won't put a name on the stadium. We'd rather just have Tottenham Hotspur. In answer to the second question about pricing, ticket pricing is an area I know everyone is sensitive to, and so are we. We haven't put ticket prices up until recently, despite the fact that they've been fixed for over 4 years. That's our general ticket prices. Premium prices have gone up. We're all facing increased costs. We've absorbed as much as we can, but you're right. If we had other sources of income, maybe we wouldn't have had to do it, but we are in a highly competitive industry, and everything we do is to maximize the income to invest in the team. Look, I know you're probably going to disagree with me on this one, but I 100% agree with his answer. I've been saying it for months and months and months on the channel that if you sell your naming rights to Mercedes-Benz or Google or whatever else, there's a reason why they want that brand exposure. And there's a reason why Tottenham Hotspur are the fastest growing supported team in America across all sports. And in my belief, it's because when Beyonce goes there, when the NFL go there, etc., how much does it cost in America to have a 30-second advert for an NFL weekend or the Super Bowl? It costs an absolute fortune, millions and millions of dollars. Every time the London series comes to the UK, every 5 seconds, every 5 minutes, there's a graphic on the screen saying the Bills versus the Chargers at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, right? It's a money generator in and of itself, the NFL thing, but not selling the naming rights to me has far higher revenue indirect. It might be difficult to calculate, but the latency of the conversion in terms of growing the supporter base, growing the awareness of Tottenham Hotspur as a club in the market that you want to be known in, which is America, which is the fastest growing Premier League supported area in the world. For me, I think it's a win-win. When the right company comes along and pays the right money, fine. Until then, it's not like we're wasting the opportunity. We're still gaining things in the absence of a naming rights deal. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do agree. I do feel like the impact it has made has been massive for us. And we are, like you say, are one of the fastest growing teams. But just for me, on I don't really. I agree with the naming rights deal side of things, but it's just the ticket pricing side of things. I feel like I say, when
Jordan.
we see,
So
sorry,
sorry, mate. Can you give your answer? I'll be 10 seconds. I just got to open the
no
door for
worries.
some.
Yeah, yeah, no, go for it, go for it. Yeah, so I believe that on the ticket pricing side of things, I do feel like it's just we're charging too much money at this rate. Come on, we're the highest priced team in the league for any of their tickets, home, away, well not away, but home tickets, season price tickets. It's just, and our investment isn't matching up to that. So when you're at this level of a team and you're priced at such high rate, our investment needs to match up. And all I want to see is I want to see this team have a heavy investment. I want to see this team progress, and I want to see this our manager backed. I like we have had this so far this season, but in January, we want to see further signings, want to see a heavy investment and not going for the cheap player. Because far too many times we go for player B, player C, option D. We need to be going for our number one targets and can't be letting them go to our rivals or to other teams just because we don't want to pay the extra 5 or 10 million. Because, like we say, we are one of the biggest teams in the world, one of the fastest growing teams in the world, and one of the highest generating teams in the world. So it's something that I expect of a club our level.
I did hear your answer, believe it or not. Ticket pricing. I'm out of breath. The ticket pricing thing. Listen, again, I know that it's a very sensitive topic. I've been accused of being all sorts of names for not agreeing with the masses on it. I personally, because I come from like an economic background, I personally kind of come at it from a bit more of a.
You understand it on a business point of view, and I do see that. Yeah, I do see that.
And but listen, in an ideal world, I love the fact that Tottenham Hotspur are generating as many revenue streams as they can from things that don't affect Tottenham Hotspur fans. Like if there's a way that we could have events at the stadium every day for rugby, for darts, for golf, whatever, if there was a way that you could get the average person in the street that's not the Tottenham Hotspur fan to fund Tottenham Hotspur, I'm all for it. But with the inflation in ticket in player trading being or superseding the cost of living by such a ridiculous amount because of Saudi Arabia and other elements, I feel like whilst you can divest the responsibility away from Tottenham fans, you still can't completely remove it. And I think that Tottenham fans also need to, just face the reality of what it costs to put events on these days. But I know that that's an unpopular take. It is what it is.
I feel like you can see, like you say, when you can look at it from so many different points of view, and I don't feel like there's a wrong take to it because at the end of the day, I'm a match going fan. I'm still going to go to the games whether the price is too high or whether the price is too low because I want to see my team play. And quite frankly, at this moment in time, when the team's playing good football, a lot of us fans aren't going to complain when we're spending our money because we're having a good day out. But when our team's playing bad, that's when it's going to become the hot topic and it's going to become the big news. But yeah, again, so
100%.
Right now, we can't complain. I'm just giving us the smiles on our face.
How much? Yeah, I don't know how much Ange Postecoglou is getting paid, but I don't think it's anything like what Conte was getting paid. And in terms of the kind of whether the juice is worth the squeeze from Daniel Levy's perspective, there's a reason why it took 6 years to do one of these things. He waited until everyone had a bit more of a smile on their face, right? So I hope Ange is getting paid what he's worth because Conte didn't. Conte got paid more than he was worth, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%.
I want to move this one to you, Daniel Levy. This is about the role of the academy. I guess this comes back to Ange as well. I should have brought this up with the kind of hiring of Ange thing. Daniel Levy, Jordan, on what do you see the role of the academy as? His answer was one of the reasons why we asked Ange to become our manager is that he believes in the academy. The relationship between the first team and the academy is really important. This is a club where we as fans get a great thrill out of seeing a player coming out of the academy and into the first team. We want to see that flourish. And I think that over the years, we've got some very good players in our academy, and we'll see them coming into the first team. We haven't seen enough of it over the entirety of the Daniel Levy era. From what I've heard, they are now making the under-21s play the same system as Ange Ball, which is new and good to see. And obviously, we're doing well in the youth team. Do you expect Ange to give, or what is your expectancy on seeing youth team players get minutes maybe this season's more difficult because there's just not the opportunity. But over the next, let's say this season and next season is, what's your sort of expectation?
I'd say this season I probably don't, unless we have a lot of injuries. I don't expect to see any academy players coming through unless they're just shining on another level and they're just ready for that first team football. I just don't feel like this season we can afford to put any of them in there in any of the bigger games. Maybe if we're later on into the season and I don't know, we're already secure top four and we're not really playing for first, then we can afford to not even drop points, but just afford to experience a few things out. But next season, I do expect to see when we have Europe, when we have the EFL Trophy, when we have FA Cup, and we're battling on all fronts and we have more competitions, we definitely need to start to utilize the youngsters, especially the ones that will be coming back from loan, the likes of Dane Scarlett, the likes of Alfie Devine, because they're two players that once they start hitting 2021, that's when they need to start seeing first team football. Because if they don't, I feel like you have a few players, and it always happens to us, they start to get around 22, 23, and the players start to demand first team football, and then we have to look at selling them. And for our best talents, something that we've always done, we've let go of them over these past couple of years. The likes of Marcus Edwards, the likes of Noni Madueke, talented players that are now playing at big clubs, and whether they're doing well or not, they're still had a good impact on their team. So we need to try and utilize it as much as we can. And as I say, the likes of Devine, the likes of Scarlett, the likes of Jamie Donnelly, Dorrington, they're good players that I'm looking forward to see over the next 2-3 years if they can get the opportunity and make the most of it.
Do you think that is there any particular player that is, in your opinion, that is touted as being the next whatever, that probably, from what you're seeing, that may not make it, whether it's Scarlett, Harvey White, Alfie Devine, or even one of these guys that are kind of pitching through now? Is there any of these names that we're hearing about being ready to think maybe not?
I don't think but I know a lot of people subscribe to Troy Parrott maybe a year or two ago. People were quite excited about him. I don't feel like he's good enough to come anywhere near the first team, nor Harvey White. I feel like Harvey White, from what I've seen of him, is just, he looks like Harry Winks. He's literally another version of him, just very tidy on the ball, can put in a nice little free kick every now and then, but he's not going to be a player that we can look to step up in our first team. Of the other names that I've mentioned, the likes of Scarlett, I do feel like he was a bit underwhelming last season because he started off very well at Portsmouth and he was scoring a few goals, and then he just trailed off and disappeared completely. And I don't know, now he's gone to Ipswich and with a manager that supports him, is very excited to have him there. So hopefully we can see more of him. But if I don't see anything from Scarlett this season, if I'm totally honest, I would be looking at potentially he's going to have another loan or moving him on, because we need to see more from him. He's playing in the championship, and that is somewhere where players of his age usually show whether they're ready for the Premier League or not. The likes of Brennan Johnson, the likes of Tammy Abraham, the likes of Ivan Toney, when they're all younger, all scoring 18, 19, 20 goals there. So there's no reason why the likes of Dane Scarlett shouldn't be.
Completely agree, mate. Completely agree. I think we've got a lot. Let's have a look. One more. Is there one more or two more? Let's have a look. I've got the cup run thing. How big is this one? Chris Cowlin, again, thanks, Chris. Daniel Levy on what does the club need to support Ange, or what does the club need to do to support Ange for a proper cup run? His answer is we need to provide all the conditions, whether that be appropriate players, facilities. The fans need to get behind the team, and we all need to be as one. That gives you the best chance of winning. But Ange has won things at other clubs, so maybe it's a question for Ange and what we need to do. And I don't have his answer. I don't have his answer in front of me, but I can tell you that he essentially said, this club is bigger than just a cup runs. We should be competing on all fronts for absolutely everything, not just cups. I mean, you love him. You absolutely love him, don't you? Like, he always gets the right answer.
100%. But we do remember one of our old favourite managers said the exact same thing in Pochettino. He said, we're bigger than a cup run. We're bigger than the FA Cup and Carling Cup. We want to go and focus on the Champions League and Premier League. And that is essentially the downfall of Pochettino. Was he used to give away those cup runs, throw all the rubbish teams in there, go out, and then we don't perform in the other trophies. Right. I do subscribe to what he says. We are bigger than a cup run. We're definitely bigger than just winning a cup and finishing 5th or 6th. I do want to focus on playing in the Champions League and playing and competing in the Premier League, but a cup run is needed. We haven't had one in 15 years now. I was a kid when we had one. It's been such a long time. So I'm looking forward to. I need this team to. I think all of us, we just need some joy. We need to see a trophy and a cup run this season or next season, whether it's an FA Cup, Carling Cup, will be big for us. It will be a big trophy. It will be a big win. It's just something that we can get over, and it's one of those things, just a chip off the shoulder. Because if Ange can win a trophy, it's a big relief for this fan base. Because now there's not that pressure to win a trophy. It's now let's build a team that can win a title, and it's not going to be all about winning an FA Cup or Carling Cup.
I just feel like every time he's asked about the cups, Ange, especially with regards to the Fulham thing, he's come up with 3 different narratives now. The first time it was, why did you play the B team? Well, how do I know if they're A team or B team unless I see them play? Right, which I had a problem with because he basically made the A team the B team. So how are you going to know if these players are good enough for the A team if you're only ever playing them with B team players? Didn't like the answer. Then he goes on TalkSport and he changes the narrative and says, I don't want us just to win the cup and then finish 10th, right?
Yeah,
but no one was suggesting that. And now he's saying, we're bigger than all of it. We can go and do everything. He seems like he's kind of flip-flopping between answers regarding the cup and its priority. And I don't know if that's because he has been told, just like probably most of the other managers that have gone before him, that the cups are not where the money is, right? The cups are, you get 1 million, you get more money probably for the Tottenham Hotspur revenue from one home cup game than you probably do from actually winning the cup in prize money. Whereas qualifying for the Champions League gets you 50, 60 million. And probably when Ange and Levy had a frank heart-to-heart or whatever at the start of the season, Daniel Levy probably said, look, if you want the money to buy the best players, we need the most money. If you really want to compete, then Champions League is where it's at. So, take that, how you want to take it. But the cups are not that important in terms of if you've got ambitions to win the title, what's that going to take? Well, Daniel, it's going to take the best players. Okay, well, if you want the best players, then we need the most money. So you've got to figure out a way to get 4th or 5th because that's where the money comes from. But I think he's just struggling to kind of find a way to say that without saying it, maybe.
I do think that he does want to compete on all fronts, unlike Pochettino. I don't feel like he did set out. I do feel like he realized he did make a mistake with that team. And I feel like it's one that he'll definitely learn from. And in the FA Cup, he won't go and set out such a B team per se and rest too many players. Because I'm not being funny. A lot of these players are used to playing twice a week anyway. Like we're a European club. A lot of these players are used to playing Champions League, Premier League, or Europa League, Premier League. So playing in the Carling Cup in midweek and playing games midweek and cup competition shouldn't be a problem. So rotating squads or rotating players in the cup competition, I don't think it's something he'll do as much.
Yeah, 100%.